Hi. I'm admitting everyone to the webinar.
Recording in progress.
So let us wait for everyone to join, and then we can start. Let me welcome you all to this exciting session. I'm very happy to meet you all. Hi, welcome to this session. Let me welcome you, everyone. So let us wait for 2 more minutes, and then we can start the session. Okay, so let us start. Let me share my screen. Okay, so let me welcome you all to this wonderful session, like this exciting session on the introduction to graph neural networks. We will cover the applications of GNNs from industry to research. So, okay, I think there are more people joining. Okay, so once again, let me welcome you all. Today, let us discuss about the amazing applications of graph neural networks or GNNs from industry to research. So I'm very excited. This is Togo AI Lab's first ever webinar. So I'm very happy to see so many responses I received when I posted about this webinar. So I'm very happy and excited to start the session. So before we begin, let me give a brief about myself and my journey into AI research. So I did my undergrad in instrumentation and control engineering, and I graduated in 2019. And I decided to do my master's in data science. So it was one of the hot topics at that time. So I wanted to pivot, and I was really interested in AI and its applications. So I joined my master's in data science in 2020, and I graduated in 2022. And at the same time, I was working as an AI researcher at University of Wyoming, where I was mainly working on computer vision projects. I worked on identifying oil pads from hyperspectral satellite images, and that was very exciting and interesting. So that actually created a deep interest in me, continuing my research in this AI field. I worked on many computer vision projects, and uh, same time I was working on natural language processing and ML for speech projects, and we were working on developing models and tools that can take as input speech and generate the English meaning of that speech for regional languages. So this actually resulted in an interaction with Prime Minister of India, PM Narendra Modi, and that is one of the greatest achievements I consider as part of my AI research journey. And in 2021, I won the Best Research Award for my work, where I used graph neural networks for classifying proteins into their respective families based on the amino acid sequences. Also, I worked on e-commerce platform where users interact with items. So I used temporal graph networks for uh, predicting the user item interaction in e-commerce platforms. So for these researchers, I won Best Paper Award at ICERI, which was an international conference on machine learning and AI projects. So after that, I graduated and I joined a startup, which was a multi-million dollar startup based in US and India. And I worked there as an AI researcher, and I worked on different AI research projects that was mainly by using GNNs and computer vision projects, and that was also very exciting. And after that, I decided to build my own research platform where students, researchers, and industry professionals can enroll, collaborate, and work on high impact AI research, and we will help in publishing the works. So that was the birth of Togo AI Labs. Currently, I'm working full time building Togo AI Labs, and I'm collaborating with students, researchers, and professionals on different AI projects, mainly GNN research projects. And we are aiming to publish our work in very good journals this year. So by the end of this year, I'm hoping that we will publish very high impact research works from Togo AI Labs. So this is about me. So this is what I said. Like our team developed a tool where people can recite Sanskrit verses and generate their English meanings. So this was as part of an event called TOEICathon 2021. So this event was organized by AICTE and Government of India, and they had a vision of developing AI tools aligning with the Indian heritage. So we developed our AI tool. We named it Samskriti, where people can recite Sanskrit verses or Sanskrit shlokas, and their English meanings will be generated. So I led a team of 5 developing Samskriti, and we also developed our website for that. And our aim was to extrapolate technology to regional languages also. So we used natural language processing and machine learning for speech recognition, and we developed Samskriti. And this actually helped Ayurveda medicine students to understand their concepts. So their concepts mainly, it was surrounded by many Sanskrit shlokas, which was actually difficult to understand for a person who's not like if he's not familiar with Sanskrit, it will be difficult for them to understand. So our Samskriti actually helped Ayurveda medicine students, and they were able to recite their slokas from their curriculum, and they were able to understand its meaning by generating the English meaning. So we were among the top 5 finalists in the entire country, and we interacted with PM Narendra Modi as part of this event. And I consider that as one of the biggest achievements in my life, and that actually created a fire in me to conduct AI research and develop more models. And at Togo AI Labs also, I am working on many AI research projects with other highly passionate candidates. And yeah, that is one of the main things that gives happiness. So at Togo AI Labs, what we do is we collaborate with students and researchers, and we work on different AI research projects. And also we have courses, graph neural network courses. Then there are AI courses for beginners, AI courses for finance professionals, and we are also building communities. Now we have a community, AI Reboot for Women, where we are inviting women to join our community and learn together with other members of the community. We will help in networking. We will have lectures, live lectures and recorded lectures, where we will help everyone in the community to transition to AI, and we will help in networking, interview preparation, and for the females who are in the stage of job transition or career breaks because of many issues related to postpartum stress or maternity or anything. So this community is aimed to help them all. So, and let me share my research journey as an independent AI researcher. So I would like to compare my story with the old story of Crow, who gathered pebbles and put it in the water pot to drink the water. So I'd like to compare my story with that crow's story. So I gathered my own set of pebbles, like the foundational mathematics knowledge in calculus, linear algebra, and probability. And also, I tried to understand different algorithms, like the graph algorithms. And by using these concepts, I started researching on graph neural networks, and I worked on different graph neural network research problems like predicting the user item interaction in e-commerce platforms, or modeling molecules as graphs, and classifying proteins into different families based on the amino acid sequence. So wherever I can apply graph, where the data is highly unstructured, traditional neural networks can't be used. So I was excited in using graph neural network in those areas. And for that, my pebbles were the foundational mathematics knowledge and the understanding of algorithms. So now we can see there are new models and new architectures emerging every day. So for an individual to master every new architecture and every new model and keep track of all the new happenings, it is difficult. So I think if a person have if the mathematical foundation is very strong, and if he can master linear algebra or calculus or probability, and if he is good at understanding algorithms, then we can, when a new architecture or even a new model comes, we can relate to whatever we know, the concepts that we know, and understand the new concepts better. So this is my approach of learning new things. So that is how I began my journey as an independent researcher. Of course, there was many challenges, like the data was very messy, handling large graphs were difficult, but it was really exciting when we got very good results, and when we presented our works in conferences, and passionate people appreciated our work. So if there are challenges, if we keep on working on it consistently, then if we work like that, there will be very sweet rewards at the end. So now I'm collaborating with other researchers and students, and we are following the same approach. We will master the basics. We will master we will build a good foundational knowledge with the concepts, and we will start working on our research problems. So this will be the agenda of today's webinar. We will start by discussing what are GNNs, or what are graph neural networks. Then where are graphs used? So when we have other neural networks like convolutional neural networks or recurrent neural networks, why we need GNNs or graph neural networks separately. So why we need GNNs, then we will discuss some applications of graph neural networks like Google's knowledge graphs, then LinkedIn's own graph neural network, which is LinkSage, which they developed inspired from the famous Graph Sage. And we will discuss about the Twitter's temporal graph network, and we will also see how molecules can be modeled as graphs. So let us get started, and following this we will have a Q&A session where I am very happy to share whatever I know regarding the graph neural networks, and I'm also interested in getting your feedback and your knowledge in this field. So let us have a Q&A session after discussing all these topics. So let us begin with what are graph neural networks. So these are some of the applications of graph neural networks. We can see graph neural networks like it is working behind the scenes in navigation maps that we use, like the Google Maps. Graph neural networks are used for recommendation systems. It is being used in e-commerce platforms. We can see the use of graph neural networks in drug discovery, social networks, retail, biochemistry, and even discovering the structure of proteins. So graph neural networks, now we can see that in every field. So what they are actually? So graph neural networks are used to train graphs or to perform tasks with graph structured data. So a graph data structure is a collection of vertices and edges. We call these vertices as nodes. So here you can see we have a graph with 6 vertices or 6 nodes. These vertices or nodes are the information centers in a graph, and edges that connect these nodes carry the information from one node to its connected neighboring nodes. So these vertices can be people in a social network, items in an e-commerce platform, or items in a retail market. It can be the atoms in a molecule. It can be anything like that. And if the vertices are the people in a social network, then we will have all the vertices as people, and the edges can be anything, like the relationship between the people. It can be the friendship, or it can be the relationship between people. Like if there is a student and a professor, then it can be that relationship. So this edges will tell us about the relationship between the connected nodes. So if we have items and users in an e-commerce platform, then it will be a heterogeneous graph with different types of entities as the nodes, and the edges can be a user viewing an item, a user making a purchase or making a transaction. So these events can be the edges at that time. So why we need graph neural networks is if we have an e-commerce network, if we can predict the probability of formation of one edge, then between a user and an item, then we can actually predict the probability of that user purchasing that item, and we can recommend the product advertisements to that users accordingly, and we can know, okay, this user will interact with this item at this particular timestamp. So there are many amazing applications for using graph neural networks, where we can train graph data and perform tasks. So these edges can be the relationship between the nodes. It can be the friendships, or it can be the bonds between the atoms in a molecule, or it can be the transactions happening in an e-commerce platform. Anything. The relationship between the vertices can be the edges. Now, a graph neural network can process the nodes and edges in a graph, and also there will be features in the graph between the edges and the nodes, like the strength of the friendship, or the strength of the edge between the user and the item. There can be features nodes and edges, and we can use graph neural networks to work with graph structured data and perform amazing tasks. Now, how can we represent a graph data structure? The fundamental representation of a graph data structure is by using its adjacency matrix. By looking into an adjacency matrix, we can tell whether two nodes in a graph are connected or not. So we can represent a graph as a collection of vertices and edges. We can write it as G equal to VE, and we can use an adjacency matrix to represent the graph. So let us see how we can do that. So we have different types of graphs, like we have directed graphs and undirected graphs. So a directed graph means it will, the nodes will pass information to its neighboring nodes based on a particular direction. So here, node 3, from node 3 to node 1, there will be a flow of information. From node 1 to node 2, there will be a flow, and from node 2 to node 3, there will be a flow. But the information from node 3 is not shared with node 2. Similarly, in an undirected graph, there is no particular direction for the flow of information. Information from node 1 is passed to node 3, and information from node 3 is passed to node 1 also. So based on the direction of the flow of information, graphs can be classified into two classes as directed graphs and undirected graphs. Also, we can classify the graphs based on the weights between the edges. By having a weighted graph, we can tell the edge between the nodes 2 and 3 with a weight of 7 is having more importance in the graph than the edge between the nodes 1 and 3 with a weight of 3. But in an unweighted graph, the edge weights will be assumed as 1. All the edges will be having equal weights. So we can write, or we can represent an adjacency matrix as a matrix V by V. And wherever there is an edge between two nodes, we will write 1 or the weight of that edge in that particular space. And if there is no edge, then we will write 0. So let us see an example. So here we have a graph with 3 nodes, 1, 2, and 3. So we will have an adjacency matrix of dimension 3 by 3. If there are n nodes in the graph, then the dimension of the adjacency matrix will be n by n. So here we have a 3 by 3 matrix. So we have V1, V2, and V3 as the vertices of the graph. So here there is there is no edge, there are no self loops in this graph. So there is no edge between vertex 1 with vertex 1 itself. So we have a 0 here. There is an edge between vertex 1 and vertex 2. So we write 1. There is no edge between vertex 1 and vertex 3 because there is no information flowing from vertex 1 to vertex 3. So we have a 0 here. This direction is important. Now we will consider node 2 or vertex 2. There is no self loop, so there is no edge between vertex 2 and vertex 2. There is no edge between vertex 2 and vertex 1 since there is no information flowing from 2 to 1. So we have a 0 here. Similarly, there is no self loop. So between vertex 2 and vertex 2, again we will have a 0. And there is a flow of information from 2 to 3. So we have 1 here. And similarly, we will see the information flow for vertex 3. And we have an information flow between 3 and 1. So we have a 1 here. There is no flow of information from 3 to 2, so 0. And there is no self loop, so again 0. So this is how we represent an adjacency matrix of a graph. So by looking into an adjacency matrix, we can tell whether the graph is a directed graph or an undirected graph, whether the graph is a weighted graph or an unweighted graph, and which all vertices in the graph are connected and which are not connected. So this adjacency matrix can speak almost all the informations regarding the graph. Now, similarly, we can write the adjacency metrics for an undirected graph by looking at what all nodes are connected and not connected, whether the graph is a weighted one or a non-weighted one. By looking into those features, we can determine the adjacency metrics for all graphs, whether that is undirected graph or a directed graph. For an undirected graph, we can notice one thing: the adjacency metrics will be symmetric, because the flow of information from one vertex to its connected vertex will be same. Like the information can flow from vertex 1 to vertex 3, and also from vertex 3 to vertex 1. So because of this, the adjacency metrics of an undirected graph will always be symmetric. Similarly, if we have a weighted graph, then instead of writing 1 in the positions where there is an edge between two nodes, we will write the weight of the graph. So here, instead of 1, we have 4, 3, and 7. Now, where are graph data used? Companies like LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram, they use graphs to analyze social relationships, interactions, and based on that, they recommend personalized content to the users. So when we see a friend suggestion, or when the job seekers are matched with the recruiters, we have to understand that graphs are working behind the scenes to recommend this personalized content to the users. Companies like Google and Microsoft, they use knowledge graphs to organize and connect structured data. Similarly, companies like Amazon, Netflix, and YouTube, they model user item interactions and make personalized recommendations. Now, okay, so these companies use graphs for for performing different tasks. But why actually we need graph neural networks? Why can't we use the traditional neural networks or the convolutional neural networks for performing these tasks? If they are performing very well for classifying the images or classifying videos, then why can't we use graph neural networks? Why can't we use the same neural networks for all these other purposes? Why Google is not using convolutional neural networks for building their knowledge systems, or why other platforms are not using traditional neural networks for performing the same tasks? Why we need graph neural networks? So this is an interesting question. So here you can see we have a beautiful image which we can arrange as a 2D grid of pixels. So how AI learn from images? Let us see. So here we have a grid of 2D. We have a 2D grid of pixels. It is highly structured. A pixel is having fixed number of neighbors. Like all the non-border pixels, if you observe, you can see all these non-border pixels are having exactly 8 number of neighbors. So it is highly structured. If you want to find the distance between two pixels in this graph, we can simply find out that distance by calculating the Euclidean distance between the pixels. So these images, they follow Euclidean geometry and they can be perfectly structured like a grid. They have fixed number of neighbors. We can arrange this in a very structured way. So if we use a traditional neural network, or if we use a convolutional neural network for training these images, how that works is we will have a window that is getting slided through these pixels of the images, and at every local point from this window we can learn the features of that pixels. Like if we have a window here near the beak of this bird, then maybe the convolutional neural network is learning the features of this beak, the sharpness of the beak, or the color of the feather, or the shape of the wing. So we will train numerous many images of birds, and the convolutional neural network or the traditional neural networks will learn the features from these images of the birds. It will understand, okay, if we have this particular shape of wings, then that animal is a bird. Or if the beak, if the sharpness of the beak is like this, that bird is this particular, that bird belongs to this particular species. Or this, we can classify that animal into cat or bird or dog, or we can classify that bird into different categories of birds. So by learning these features, by sliding a window through these pixels of the images, we can learn these features. So if a neural network, a traditional neural network or a convolutional neural network can learn the features from images and classify the images, or perform different tasks on these images, why can't we use this technology? Why can't we extend that technology to every data in this world? So we have data that are highly unstructured, that are not like the images, which were highly structured. For example, the people in a social network, we can't arrange these people in the social network in the format of a grid. Similarly, we have molecules that is which is impossible to arrange in a two-dimensional grid format. Similar is the case of complex proteins, which has a helix structure. We cannot arrange that in a 2D grid of in a 2D grid format like we can do for images. So many real world data are unstructured. They're very messy. They can't be structured like a 2D grid. So we cannot use a convolutional neural network like we used in an image. We cannot slide a window through this highly unstructured data. We slided through the image and we learned the features. So we have to extrapolate this amazing technology to this unstructured data also. So how can we model these data if we can't model them as 2D grid? So the answer for that is graphs. We can use graphs to model those unstructured data, like the people in a social network, or the molecules in a protein, or the amino acid sequences in a protein. We can model the highly unstructured data that does not follow Euclidean geometry, that is not fixed, that is very irregular and unstructured, in the form of graphs. And we can train graph neural networks for performing classification or prediction tasks on those data. So the tasks that we can perform with graph neural networks are node level tasks, edge level tasks, and graph level tasks. So let us understand what these tasks are in detail. So an example for a node classification task is, here we have a network of smokers and non-smokers. So here we have two smokers and two non-smokers. So they are connected. They may be friends. They may be strangers. So we have the edges that represent the relationship between the nodes in the graph. And we have an unknown edge here. This is not labeled. So by training a graph neural network, we can predict whether this node is a smoker or a non-smoker. So this is an example for a node classification task which we can do with the help of a graph neural network. And similarly, we can classify the node in an e-commerce platform or a retail market platform where we have users and items as the nodes and edges representing the relationship between the nodes. We can classify whether this node is a user node or an item node. So this is an example for a node classification task. Now, as I already said, there is an amazing application of the edge prediction task, which a graph neural network can be trained to perform. Here we have an e-commerce platform data. Here we have nodes that represent the users and the items. So here we have 3 users and 2 items as the nodes of the graph. And the users are connected and some of the users and items are connected. So if there is an edge between a user and an item, then we can assume that this user is purchasing this item. So based on this data, if we have very large graphs, if we have highly massive quantities of data, then we can predict uh, whether an edge will be formed between this user and an item. So if we can predict the probability of formation of such an edge between a user and an item, we can tell that, okay, this user will buy this item, or this user will interact with this item with 90% probability, or with 95% probability. So we can recommend content, or we can show personalized advertisement to this user that will tempt the user more to purchase this item. So if we can predict the probability of this user purchasing this item with 95% probability, then if we recommend a personalized content, or if we show a personalized advertisement, then that will tempt the user even more to purchase this item. So this is a very good application of the edge prediction task, which we can perform by using a graph neural network. Now coming to the graph level tasks, uh, we, we, uh, we know that proteins are the fundamental building blocks of life. So these proteins are made of amino acid sequences. So based on this amino acid sequence, we can classify the graph into different families. We can tell that, okay, this graph belongs to the particular class like oxidoreductase, or transferase, or transferase inhibitor. So this is an example for a graph level task where the whole graph can be classified into different families. So these are some of the applications where we can use graph neural networks and perform the different tasks, like node level task, like node classification, or the edge level task, like the edge prediction, or the graph level task, like the graph classification. Now, we already discussed about representing the graph as an adjacency matrix. So here, let me show you a very good visualization of this. So I saw this in Distill. So here you can see, I'll share this with you. So here you can see, here we have a graph with 4 nodes, A, B, C, and D. So we now know how to represent a graph by using this adjacency matrix, how to represent a graph by using adjacency matrix. But there can be different combinations. There can be, like if we have 4 nodes in a graph, then the okay, so if we have 4 nodes in a graph, then we can have the adjacency matrix, like node A can be the first node. If we consider node A as the first node, then it will be like there can be different combinations of adjacency matrix. Like if we consider node A as the first node, then B, C, and D can take 3 different, like node A, then node B, then node C, and then node D. So it can take 3 different combinations. And if node A is the first node and node B is the second node, then C and D, again, that can have different combinations. Then if A is the first node, B second node, C third node, then we can have D as the fourth node. So defining the positions of these nodes is also different. So actually we can have 4 into 3 into 2 into 1 number of combinations possible. So let me show you. So if we have nodes connected like this, C is connected with B, B is connected with D, and D is connected with A, then we can have C is connected with D, B is connected with okay, so yeah, we can play with this and we can create different combinations of adjacent. We can create different combinations of adjacency matrices. We can play with this actually. So I think this is a good visualization, and we can learn from this also. Like if we have just A and B connected, and there are no connections between C and B. Okay, so I'm not able to remove this connection now. Okay, so then the adjacency matrix can be all these representations. Here we have total 24 representations. So all these can be the adjacency matrix representation for the graph. So when our graph becomes very large and very complex, then the adjacency matrix representation for that graph will also become very large and very complex. So this is a very good visualization of the different combinations possible for the adjacency matrix of the same graph. Now, the main purpose of this webinar, I wanted to discuss with you the amazing applications of graph neural network. So this is one of the recent and one of the amazing application. A few researchers from MIT, they used graph neural networks for discovering a new drug. So the speciality of this drug is that it can actually solve the problem of antibiotic resistance, which researchers were struggling for many long years. So there are pathogens, or there are bacteria or pathogens that are resistant to almost all the classes of antibiotics. So this particular drug discovered by researchers from MIT, it actually solved the problem of antibiotic resistance. So the bacteria that was not possible for almost all the antibiotics to kill them, actually this drug halicin was able to kill those bacteria. So how the researchers developed this drug halicin is by using ChemProp, which is a package containing message passing neural networks, which is a type of graph neural network or GNN that can be used for molecular property prediction. So how ChemProp was used to discover halicin is uh, this was able to learn the representation of the graph structured data. So the molecules were viewed as graphs, and this was trained on almost 12,000 or more compounds, and it was also tested on living organisms like the mice, and uh, this they were able to discover this halicin drug, which could kill the bacteria that was resistant to all the antibiotics we know so far. So this message passing neural networks, uh, they work by passing the features across the nodes and edges. So a graph neural network works by some mechanisms, which we will discuss in the coming parts of this webinar. So by training the graph neural network or the message passing neural network on almost 12,000 compounds, they were able to discover this drug. So at how that worked is they had a very big graph with so many nodes and so many edges. So these nodes contained information or the features like the properties of the molecules or the properties of that class of molecules. So there were many features, and these features were passed to the neighboring nodes or the neighboring connected nodes, and those features were aggregated, and by using this the graphs was trained, like this large graph was trained on so many compounds, like 12,000 or more. I don't remember the exact number, but that was trained on a massive number of compounds, and it was even tested on living organisms like mice. And then uh, this this particular drug, halicin, was discovered that could interact with the pathogens and kill the pathogens that was resistant to all the non-drugs so far. So here we can see an amazing application of graph neural network which was used to discover a drug. So this message passing neural networks in ChemProp is one of the classifications of graph neural network. So this is the discovery of halicin. So the main core component of this ChemProp was the directed message passing neural network, where the molecules were seen or the molecules were trained as graphs. Then it was trained on 10 to the power of 3 molecules or more. And finally, as a result of this, halicin drug was discovered. So the main, there were many other algorithms, or there were many other methods like explainable AI, also for discovering the drug halicin. But the main core component of that was the graph neural network, or the message passing neural network, which is a classification of graph neural network where the molecules were viewed as graphs. So by using this and other methods like explainable AI, this halicin drug was discovered. Now, coming to other applications like the Google Knowledge Graph, or how Google uses graph neural networks for navigation map, or Google Knowledge Graphs, or to rank their pages. Let us see how Google uses graph neural network for different applications. So Google search uses graph neural networks to improve information retrieval, ranking their pages, and recommending the content to the users. So Google's knowledge graph, it represents entities as nodes and their relationships as edges. So these entities can be anything. It can be the objects, or the people, or the places. It can be anything, or even situations. So we will discuss about that in detail. So Google uses knowledge graphs to represent these entities and to recommend the content, or the ranking their pages, or to retrieve information. So this is one application where Google uses GNNs. One other application is YouTube's recommendation system using graph neural network to suggest videos. So we can see that as we can see YouTube modeling a small graph like this. The users and the videos are the nodes of this graph. A graph with different types of nodes can be called as a heterogeneous graph. So this is a heterogeneous graph with nodes as users and the YouTube videos. And the edges can be the relationship between the nodes, like watching or commenting on the videos, or liking a video. So there are different users who are watching the same video or similar videos. So these users can be grouped together, or they can be clustered together to find out their relationships. So based on this, YouTube uses, one of the GNNs behind YouTube is the GraphSage GNN. So this GraphSage actually learns the user embedding and the video embedding. It generates embeddings for users and videos, and it will aggregate features like this user is connected to this video. So if we have a vector or an embedding associated with this user, that can be exchanged, and the features can be exchanged between the nodes. So this user is watching this video, and this user is also watching this video. This user is also watching this video. So we can cluster these users together, and this GraphSage learns user and video embeddings by aggregating features from the connected nodes. And also by using these features, they can aggregate these features by using any function like min or max or any function like that. And by using this aggregated features from the users who watched similar videos, we can recommend content to other users. For example, if this user is inactive from the platform for a particular period of time, we now have the features of other users who watched similar videos or who have similar patterns of this user's watching history. So based on that information, even if this user is absent from this platform for a period of time, when the user logs in back to the platform, we can recommend content based on the watching history of other users who have the similar watching pattern. So GraphSage is one of the many GNNs working behind YouTube's recommendation systems. Now, Google's another application of graph neural network that Google has is the knowledge graphs. A knowledge graph can be called as a network of real-world entities. These entities can be anything. That can be objects like a cat or an apple or a laptop, or it can be events like a sports event like a marathon or Olympics or anything. And it can also be situations like a pandemic or a flood. So Google's knowledge graphs, it has a graph of all these objects, or it has different data sets from various sources as the nodes. And it has three main components: nodes, edges, and labels. And also it is made up of graphs. As I mentioned, it is made up of graphs that are collected from various sources. Now, by combining, by using schemas, identities, and contexts, Google's knowledge graph can tell whether if a user types an apple as a query, it can tell whether the apple the user is searching is the apple fruit or the apple brand. So by using this knowledge graphs which is made up of data sets from various sources, having the nodes as entities like anything in the world, like the objects or the situations or the brand names. So based on these information, actually we can tell whether the user is meaning the apple fruit or the apple brand. So how Google's knowledge graphs works to do this is, if we have like if there are different words like Apple, Microsoft, Google, or Tesla, so these will be considered as vectors, and they will be clustered. If we view that as a graph, then these brand names will be somewhere nearby. These nodes will be near or closer to each other than the words like apple, orange, banana, or strawberry. So, so by calculating the distance between the vectors, or by performing operations on that, we can tell whether the user is meaning this apple fruit or the apple brand. So if we consider it as sentences, it will be difficult for an algorithm to tell this. But if we view this as a graph, then in the graph, the nodes can be clustered together, or the nodes can be grouped closer to each other, which shares the same representations. So Google's knowledge graph is represented through Google search engine result pages, and it serves information based on what a user search. For example, the example that we already mentioned, apple fruit or apple brand, or if a user searches Tesla, whether that means Nikola Tesla or the brand Tesla. So by using this knowledge graph, Google is able to show the results very quickly within spans of seconds, or even shorter. Now coming to the next application, 2024 Nobel Prize in Chemistry, it was for AlphaFold. which was designed. It was an end-to-end thing designed to predict the 3D structure of a protein. So I wanted to share that GNN was used in the core component of the architecture for this protein structure prediction, for this 3D protein structure prediction. So let us see how AlphaFold used GNNs. So this protein folding was a 50-year or decade-long grand challenge in biology. So we know that proteins are the building blocks of life. Every living organism, they require proteins to function for cell respiration or muscle movements or for producing energy or for everything. There are many life purposes which can be fulfilled only if there is proteins existing. So if we want to model or if we want to determine the structure of a single protein, it will take years to determine that experimentally. But in nature, in every living cell, we can see proteins functioning. For a cell to conduct its cell respiration, we need proteins. For a human to walk, we need protein. For me to move my hands or fingers, actually, for moving my muscles, we require proteins. So in nature, nothing can happen, like living things cannot survive if there is no protein. And in nature, proteins fold spontaneously within milliseconds. So in order to experiment this in an experimental setting, it will take years to determine the structure of a single protein. But in nature, this is happening spontaneously. So what the researchers found out, or what they discovered, is that there will be some topology in energy landscape that guides the whole folding process of proteins. And a protein is comprised of different sequences of amino acid residues. So here we can see a protein has a helix structure. So it can be represented as a chain of amino acid sequence. But this amino acid sequence, it can be fold, or it can have 10 to the power of 300 total conformations. So imagine how large it is. So because of all this protein folding was a grand challenge in biology that nobody was able to solve efficiently. One of the main thing was it will take years to determine the structure of a single protein. We should thank Protein Data Bank, or the PDB, with years or decades of experimental work. They were able to determine approximately 170,000 structures of proteins. And this was the starting point to train AlphaFold. So with the developments in AI, that helped them to set clear benchmarks and use AI models to work on predicting the 3D structure of proteins. And how they did that was, here this is an example for an amino acid sequence. Here we can see there are many amino acid residues, like we can represent them as M, T, T, V, A, or G. We can represent these amino acid sequences. We can join them as a string of amino acid sequences to define a protein. But imagine if we have a string of amino acid sequence, we can fold them in any number of ways. There can be different combinations for folding these amino acid sequences, and if we fold them in different ways, then their function can differ. For example, two proteins that have very similar amino acid sequences are proteins belonging to the class oxidoreductase and proteins belonging to the class oxidoreductase inhibitor. So even though there are proteins with very similar amino acid sequences within these classes, their functions are totally opposite. Some of their functions will be to bind to a particular target, and the other one's function will be to inhibit that. So even though the amino acid sequences are very similar within these classes of proteins, their functions will be totally different. So we cannot use text-based representations of amino acid sequences to model the proteins, or to classify, or to determine the structure of the proteins efficiently. So there should be something else, like some other representations for these amino acid residues other than the text-based representations. So in this AlphaFold, one of the core component was evoformer. It is the core building block of AlphaFold structure. So evoformer, it was built by using transformers and by using graph neural networks. So it was used to model the residue-residue interaction within the proteins. So how the proteins were modeled or viewed as graphs by evoformer? Let us see that. So here I have a very simple example. Here we have nodes as the amino acid residues of the protein and edges as the interactions between the residues. So these amino acid residues can be anything, any one of these, and the edges can be the interaction between those residues. So if we have a text-based representation of these amino acid residues, then only one form of one combination will be possible to determine the structure, which is not realistic, which is not happening in reality. A protein can have a single amino acid residue can have different combinations when we fold them in different ways. So a graph-based representation of these amino acid residues was used in evoformer, in which they combined graph neural networks and transformers, and they trained the model to determine the structure of the structure of the protein, 3D structure of the protein. So this is a very complex project. So where they used graphs or the graph neural networks or the graph representation of amino acid residues, it actually helped in solving a problem it remained as a challenge for more than 50 years or decades. But by representing the amino acid residues as graphs, the researchers were able to solve that problem. So AlphaFold actually modeled the protein as a graph where neighboring residues exchange information through GNN-based message passing. So message passing is one of the basic mechanisms in a graph neural network, where the nodes will exchange its features with the neighboring connected nodes. So if a protein is modeled as a graph with amino acid residues as the nodes and interaction between the residues as the edges, then easily we can perform message passing mechanism to exchange the features between the different connected nodes. So whatever conformation or whatever folding they assume, the connected nodes can exchange the information in the same way. So how this benefited is they were able to use graph neural networks, and that allowed them to pass the features between the amino acid residues, and it ensured a consistent 3D structure. If we were using graph-based representations instead of if we were using text-based representations instead of graph-based representation, this wouldn't be possible. Like the 3D structure will keep on changing if it was text-based representation. But by using graph-based representations of the amino acid residues, they were able to maintain the consistent 3D structure of the protein. And transformers self-attention model, it actually, they were able to model the long-range dependencies, and it also helped in improving the structure prediction of the proteins. And in this, they represented the amino acid residues as MSAs, and they also represented it as paired representation, which allowed them to continuously communicate between the residues and also refine the accuracy of the model. So with all this, the researchers at researchers behind this, they were able to solve a problem that was a challenge for more than 5 decades. Now let me show you another very good visualization or very good example where we can try to classify a graph into different categories. So here, this is a very good visualization or very good example. So here we have a graph neural network trained for a graph level prediction task on molecules. So here we have different trained molecules and we can classify the molecules represented as graphs, nodes as the different atoms and bonds as the edges between them. And we can use this graph neural network application for classifying the graph into two classes, whether the compound is whether this molecule is a pungent one or whether that is not pungent. So let us see how they have done this. So here we have different molecules. So if we have this gray colored molecules, then they are not pungent. They have trained the GNN like that. And if we have this red ones, then they are highly pungent. So here we have many different molecules, and we can also define the layers of our graph neural network. We can select the aggregation function, whether mean, sum, or max aggregation function. Then we can select the node embedding size, edge embedding size, and the graph embedding size. And we can tell whether the molecules are pungent or not. Also, we have different molecules like carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and sulfur here. So let us see. Okay, so let me click on different molecules here. Okay, so here we have many molecules that are not pungent, and we have a few molecules that are pungent here. So let me clear this and let us create our own set of molecules. Okay, let me clear the bond here. So I encourage you to suggest something. You can suggest in the chat as like which molecules should we try, like NH3 or SO2 or anything. Okay, okay, NO2. Let us try with that. Okay, let me take a simple here. Okay, actually this is a bit time consuming, so let us try with some simple, very small ones. Okay, so we have okay, let us try some random ones here. Okay, now, okay, so let us train this. Okay, so this, they haven't trained this. So the ground truth, you can see the ground truth as unknown here. So they haven't trained this particular molecule when they were training this application of graph neural network. So now we have our molecule here, which they are predicting 89% pungent. So actually, we know that this is okay. Okay, this is actually SO2. I don't know whether it is exactly, the bonds are exactly like this, but I think this is SO2. And they're predicting it as 72% pungent. So actually this is a pungent one. So this is working pretty well. So this is an example. What I wanted to show here is this is an example for a graph level prediction task where the molecules are classified into two classes, whether the molecule is a pungent one or the molecule is not pungent. So we can, I'll share this in the chat box. So you can try with this, and you can also play with this and try to classify different molecules, try to find out whether they are pungent ones or non-pungent ones. And we can also create our own applications like this for classifying the graphs into different categories. This is not easy to train a very big graph for a task like this. It requires very high amount of effort, but the applications of graph neural networks is very interesting like this. There are many exciting applications like this. So one of the projects that I worked was a graph level classification task where we trained many proteins with amino acid sequences or amino acid residues, and we trained those graphs by using graph neural networks, and we classified those graphs into different categories of different classes of proteins. We had almost 14 or 15 classes in which we were able to classify the proteins into those classes. So that was a really interesting problem to work with. So I wanted to show one interesting graph level prediction task, and I found this very interesting and useful. Now let us see some other applications like how LinkedIn matches job seekers with recruiters. So LinkedIn, they published their own graph neural network called LinkSage. So LinkSage is one of the many graph neural networks that LinkedIn uses for matching the job seekers with the recruiters in the platform. So LinkSage is now world's largest job marketplace graph with billions of nodes and edges. So these nodes can be the members using the members or the users using the LinkedIn platform. They can be the jobs posted. They can be the skills of the users in the platform, the skills required by a recruiter, or positions or the company titles. So these nodes can be anything. So LinkedIn's LinkSage is a heterogeneous graph where they have mainly 6 type of nodes: members, skills, titles, companies, positions. And positions itself is a tuple with company and title. So mainly we have 6 types of nodes in the LinkSage. So how LinkedIn uses this LinkSage or this LinkSage GNN to match job seekers and recruiters? So we have static edges that connect a member to a listed job title. And the same is applied for all the jobs or all the job titles. And also we have dynamic edges that evolve over time based on the relationship derived from the user interactions. So once a job is posted by a recruiter, when a candidate or a job seeker views that job posting or applies for that job, then an edge will be formed between that user and the recruiter. Sorry, the member or the job seeker and the recruiter. So even with this, LinkedIn's large graph with billions of nodes and edges, they lacked, they had many missing information or many missing features. So when a user applies for a job, an edge will be formed between the recruiter and the member. And by simply doing this, we will not be able to efficiently match the recruiter and the job seeker. It will be just like any other recommendation recommendation systems. So in order to stand out or make this different, they introduced skill-based connections. So we have another class of nodes here, which is skills. So there will be many skills required. So we cannot treat all these skills equally. For example, if we are hiring uh, a person for the role of AI researcher, then the skill for developing website or working with WordPress, that will be irrelevant. Whereas the skill for understanding the research problem or writing a research paper or understanding different architectures, these skills will be highly relevant. So these skill-based connections will treat the relevant will determine the relevancy of the different skills. So Linksage has a scoring model to identify that relevance. So based on this this introduction of this node as skills, skill-based connections can be established between different members using the platform. For example, here member 2 and member 3, they have a skill connection. Here we have a skill node connecting member 3 and member 2. Say that skill is AI research. Then if member 2 is hiring for an AI researcher role, then they are directly connected with member 3 here, who matches this skill. So by using this scoring model to identify the relevance of a skill, Linksage is able to efficiently match job seekers and the recruiters. So this is one of the good applications of graph neural network LinkedIn is using. Now we have another one, Twitter's temporal graph network or TGN. So the main idea behind Twitter's temporal graph network is there are many users and many tweets in the platform. So for example, this is evolving in every second or in every minute. So for example, if a user is absent from this platform for 5 days or 10 days or for 10 minutes, still the edges and the nodes are continuously evolving. It is dynamic in nature. So Twitter published their work on temporal graph network, through which they were able to train graphs which were evolving dynamically with respect to time. So they have 5 modules like memory module, message function, message aggregator, memory updater, and embedding module. So the introduction of this novel memory module made them capable of storing all the history of a node. Like if we have users and tweets as the nodes of this Twitter's network, then a user can interact with other user. A person can follow another user. A person can comment on a tweet, or he can tweet something. So all these can be the events that happens at a particular timestamp. So this memory module stores the history of the node by storing all the events with respect to that particular timestamp. And message function, actually by this message function or message passing mechanism, what actually happens is a node in the graph, it exchanges its feature or all the information it contains in the form of vectors with its neighboring nodes, neighboring connected nodes. So when all the nodes in the graph exchange its feature vector with the neighboring nodes and receive the feature vectors from the neighboring nodes, then they will use message aggregator function to aggregate the messages. The aggregation function can be anything. Like in the previous example, where we classified the molecule graph into different classes like pungent or non-pungent, there we saw different aggregation functions like sum, max, mean, etc. So this message aggregator will perform the aggregation function on the received feature vectors of the neighboring nodes. And after aggregating the function, we will have the memory updater to update the memory or update the feature. So when the memory is updated, the previous event will be stored in the memory module, and the new aggregated message will be considered as the updated message, or the updated memory. So this memory updated will continuously update the memory, and it will get stored in the memory module. So the memory module now contains all the information, all the history of the nodes in the graph. And finally, the updated vectors or updated embeddings will be generated. So the use of this memory module and the memory updater in this temporal graph network is, this network is evolving dynamically with respect to time. So when a user is absent from the, even when a user is absent from the platform for a long period of time, based on his history and based on the interests that evolved uh, with respect to time. So when these will be shared with the user who was absent from the platform for a time, because other nodes that were connected with this node was active in the platform. So based on that, the history of that node can be taken, and it can be considered for the message aggregation task, message aggregation operation. And based on all these, new personalized content that is relevant at that particular timestamp can be recommended to this user who was absent from the platform for a long period of time. So by this training on dynamic data that evolved continuously over time, Twitter was able to develop this temporal graph network that can that has many amazing applications. Like, it can be extended to other platforms also. Like, if a user is absent from a video watching platform for a long period of time, based on the other users' interests, he can be recommended with new content. Or based on the evolving interests of other users in a social media platform, the absent user can be recommended with new relevant content. So how they were able to do this? So they were able to train or consider the nodes as batches to perform message passing function in at different timestamps. Here we can see there are different timestamps like T1 and T2, and they were able to generate embeddings with respect to that particular timestamps. And the memory was also updated for every timestamps, and based on all this, they were able to predict the probabilities of edge formation between nodes 1 and 2 with respect to time 1, or nodes 4 and 3 with respect to time 2. So with this edge probabilities, we can tell, okay, so node 1 will interact with node 2 at timestamp 1, or node 4 will interact with node 3 at timestamp 2. So these predictions can be made. So these edge probabilities are very useful in recommending personalized content, or recommending relevant content at that particular time. So this can be used in e-commerce platforms to improve the sales. This can be used in retail markets to improve the sales. This can be used in platforms like YouTube or Netflix or any other platforms like that to recommend personalized content to users who are interested in particular genres of the movies. We can recommend content to like, if I want to notify certain people that, okay, at this time I want to inform certain people, okay, and if I can improve my sales, then uh, this is very useful in all these scenarios. Like, if I want to sell a product, and if I know that, okay, this particular user will buy my product 3 days later, then I can continuously show them the advertisements based on their personalized interest, and I can tempt them to buy those products. So these TGNs, they're amazingly useful for many amazing projects and tasks. So I'm currently working on many tasks like that, many projects like that, where I'm collaborating with people on user item interaction prediction, improving that. So there are many amazing applications for this. So they were able to extend deep learning to dynamic graphs. They were able to work on user item interaction predictions on dynamic graphs, which were constantly evolving with respect to time, by representing sequences of timed events. And they introduced the novel concept of memory modules and graph-based operators. And also TGNs, it can actually outperform the traditional approaches which were suitable for static graphs, which were not evolving, and they were also actually more computationally efficient. So we can use all these networks like the link sage or the graph sage or temporal graph networks for other amazing applications also. So at Togo AI Labs, so coming to the end of our session, at Togo AI Labs, I'm collaborating with researchers, students, and professionals on different research collaboration projects. And we are also offering research mentorships. So if you feel you're stuck or you want mentorship or guidance for your research, you can approach us. So we will work with you on different research projects and we will help you publish your works. And also we have some programs like AI transition mentorship, where like my approach was to build a strong foundation in mathematics and algorithms, and then work on hands-on projects to learn things more efficiently, other than working on toy Kaggle projects. So we have this AI transition mentorship program where we will work with you. We will have one-to-one live lectures, and this will help you to transition to AI with a complete mentorship on the mathematics, algorithms, and different AI research projects. And also we have different courses in our website, so you can visit our website, togolabs.ai. I'll share this with you. Okay, so we have some programs and courses. So we have different programs like research collaboration, research mentorship, and full-term mentorship. And you can join that by sending an email to aishwarya@togolabs.ai. I'll post that also. So you can also enroll in different courses, like you can get expert guidance for research. You can enroll in machine learning research, graph neural network research. So these are actually research programs where you will work with us, research based on different research projects. And also we have passive courses like machine learning for finance professionals or introduction to graph neural networks. So these are passive courses which you can enroll, and you can learn those courses. So this contains recorded lectures and selected research papers. Then you can access the slides and other resources here. We have the code files, lecture slides, then examples, recorded video lectures of all these. We have different code files for different problems that we covered in this lecture. So we have the lecture videos as well as the slides and other resources for that. So if you want to just watch these videos, these are available for free in YouTube, in Vishwara's YouTube channel, which you can get from my LinkedIn profile. But if you want to access other resources like the lecture slides and other resources like the code files, then you can enroll in this course for a price of 999 rupees, and you can enroll in this course. So at the end of this course, you will be given a certificate of completion, and also you can access all the resources also. And yeah, so I'll share this website link here. And if you want to enroll in any of the courses, and if you find difficulty in enrolling the courses, just send an email to aishwarya@togolabs.ai. So I'll manually enroll you in the course.